All right, welcome back to the deep dive. If you are getting ready for those UPSC exams, that biodiversity and conservation, well, they are massive topics.
Huge, yeah.
And today we're going deep on a report that's like your cheat sheet for understanding those big changes, the changes that we need to protect our planet. And this report is from the IPBES. Think of them as the global brain trust for all things nature.
Yeah, what's really cool about this report is that it doesn't just talk about protecting endangered species.
Right.
It connects biodiversity loss to things like our economic systems, social values,
Yeah.
even our everyday choices.
Wow.
So it's a much broader perspective than you might expect.
So it's not just like planting trees or banning plastic bags.
No.
This is like we need a whole system reboot.
Exactly. The report is calling for what they call transformative change, which basically means rethinking how we interact with the environment on a fundamental level.
Okay, I'm already getting nervous. But before we jump into the solutions,
Yeah.
let's paint a picture of the problem first. So how bad is the biodiversity crisis really?
Yeah, the report paints a pretty stark picture.
Okay.
Think about coral reefs.
Yeah.
You know those vibrant underwater ecosystems?
Yeah.
The report suggests that we could lose almost all of them
Wow.
due to rising temperatures and ocean acidification.
It's hard to imagine.
It would be like wiping out entire cities,
Yeah.
but underwater.
Wow, that's a
Yeah.
powerful image.
Yeah.
And this isn't just like an environmental issue,
No.
right? This impacts people, livelihoods, entire economies,
Absolutely.
especially, I would think, in a country like India with its vast coastal communities.
Absolutely. The report emphasizes the interconnectedness of human well-being and a healthy environment. We depend on biodiversity for everything: clean air, clean water, food security, even our medicines. Losing biodiversity means jeopardizing our own well-being.
So we're not just saving cute animals.
Right.
We're saving ourselves.
Exactly.
But if it's so critical, why are we going down this path? What's driving all this destruction?
The report identifies a few root causes,
Okay.
and some of them might even seem kind of philosophical.
Okay.
For example, it talks about the disconnect between humans and nature,
Yeah.
especially with urbanization.
Right.
Many of us live in cities, surrounded by concrete, detached from the natural world.
Totally. I see that even in my own life.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget how much we depend on nature when you're surrounded by technology and convenience.
Right.
Out of sight, out of mind, I guess.
Exactly. The report also points to our tendency to kind of dominate and exploit nature.
Yeah.
We often see it as a resource to be extracted for profit rather than a complex system that we are a part of.
Yeah.
We're not separate from it.
And this kind of ties into another cause the report mentions,
Yeah.
right? The concentration of power and wealth.
Precisely. When a small group benefits from practices that harm the environment, it becomes much harder to implement change. Short-term economic gains often overshadow long-term sustainability. And this kind of short-term thinking is another major driver of the biodiversity crisis.
Okay, so we've got this disconnect from nature,
Right.
the drive to exploit resources,
Yeah.
concentrated power,
Yep.
and short-term thinking.
Huh?
Not a pretty picture. But the report doesn't just leave us with a list of problems, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be a way out of this mess.
Yeah, that's where transformative change comes in. And the report outlines 5 key strategies to shift our trajectory.
Okay.
And what's interesting is these strategies go beyond just environmental policy. They touch on economics, governance, even our personal values and beliefs.
All right, UPSC aspirants, listen up.
Yeah.
These 5 strategies are essential reading. So let's dive in. What's the first step towards this transformative change?
Okay, so the first strategy focuses on conserving and regenerating biodiversity. So it's about protecting what we have
Right.
and actively restoring what we've lost.
I like it.
The report highlights some really inspiring examples like community-driven forest management in Nepal,
Oh, wow, yeah.
where local communities are empowered to protect and regenerate their forests,
Yeah,
and it's having a real impact.
that's a great example and something you could totally mention in your UPSC answers.
Mm-hmm.
It shows that local solutions can be incredibly effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what about the second strategy? How do we make the big systems, the ones that often drive environmental damage, how do we make those more sustainable?
Yeah, the second strategy tackles just that. It's all about systematic change in these key sectors,
Okay.
like agriculture, fisheries, and infrastructure.
Right.
Think about it. These sectors have a huge impact on
Oh,
biodiversity,
they do.
but they often operate in ways that are unsustainable.
Yeah.
So this strategy is about integrating biodiversity considerations into how these sectors function.
So instead of just tacking on environmental regulations as an afterthought, it's about designing these systems with sustainability in mind from the get-go.
Precisely. Imagine agricultural practices that enhance soil health and biodiversity, fisheries that prioritize sustainable yields, and infrastructure projects that minimize habitat destruction. It's a systemic shift, not a band-aid solution.
This makes me think about India's push for sustainable agriculture.
Yeah,
Things like organic farming and promoting traditional farming methods. Those efforts definitely align with this idea of systematic change.
absolutely. And the focus on renewable energy
Right.
through the International Solar Alliance is another great example. It's
Yeah.
about transforming our energy system, which is a key part of making our infrastructure more sustainable.
Okay, so we've covered conserving existing biodiversity
Right.
and making key sectors more sustainable.
Yeah,
What's next? This transformative change thing.
right.
It sounds like it requires some pretty radical economic shifts as well.
You're right, and that's where the third strategy comes in, transforming economic systems. This is where the report gets really interesting. It challenges the current economic model that prioritizes endless growth and consumption, which, let's be honest, puts a tremendous strain on the planet.
So we're not just tweaking the system around the edges.
Yeah.
We're talking about fundamentally changing how we value and measure economic success.
Exactly. The report introduces the concept of nature-positive economies.
Whoa.
Imagine an economic system where a company's success isn't just measured by profits,
Right.
but also by its positive impact on nature.
Okay, nature-positive economies. Break that down for us.
Okay.
What would that look like in practice?
For starters, it means phasing out those harmful subsidies
Okay,
that incentivize environmentally damaging practices.
got it.
Think about subsidies that support unsustainable fishing practices
Right.
or large-scale deforestation for agriculture.
Right.
Instead, we redirect those funds towards incentivizing sustainable alternatives.
That makes sense. Stop rewarding the bad behavior and start rewarding the good. What else does a nature-positive economy involve?
It also means promoting sustainable business models.
Okay.
Think about companies that don't just minimize their environmental impact,
Yeah.
but actively contribute to
Yeah.
restoring and regenerating nature.
Interesting.
This could mean investing in reforestation projects,
Yeah.
adopting circular economy principles where waste is minimized and resources are reused,
Right.
or even developing products and services that directly benefit biodiversity.
So it's not just about corporate social responsibility anymore.
No.
It's about baking sustainability into the DNA of business.
Right.
That's a pretty big shift. But how do we make these changes happen?
Yeah.
Who's driving this transformation?
That leads us to the fourth strategy, adaptive governance.
Ooh, adaptive governance.
It's about recognizing that the challenges of biodiversity conservation are complex
Yeah.
and constantly evolving. We need governance systems that are flexible, responsive, and able to adapt to new information and changing conditions.
Adaptive governance, huh? That sounds like a mouthful.
Sure,
Can you unpack that a bit? What does that look like in the real world?
think about it this way. Traditional governance often relies on static rules and regulations. But with adaptive governance, the focus is on creating frameworks that can evolve as our understanding of environmental issues deepens. It's about embracing uncertainty and being willing to adjust our approach based on new scientific findings, community feedback, and the ever-changing dynamics of the natural world.
So it's less about top-down control
Yeah,
and more about collaboration, flexibility, and constant learning.
right.
That seems especially relevant for a country like India with its diverse ecosystems and communities.
Exactly. Adaptive governance also emphasizes inclusivity.
Okay.
It means involving a wider range of stakeholders in decision-making,
Uh-huh.
including indigenous communities who often hold invaluable knowledge about local ecosystems and sustainable practices.
So it's about recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
And we need to be open to different perspectives and approaches. This sounds like a pretty radical departure from traditional bureaucratic structures.
It is. But the report argues that this kind of adaptability is essential for tackling complex challenges like the biodiversity crisis. We can't afford to be stuck in rigid systems that are slow to respond to changing circumstances. Now, are you ready to move on to the fifth and final strategy?
Hit me with it.
Okay.
We've covered conserving biodiversity,
Yep.
making key sectors sustainable, transforming economic systems,
Right.
and embracing adaptive governance. What's the final piece of the puzzle?
The fifth strategy might seem the most intangible, but it's arguably the most crucial. It's about shifting our values and beliefs. The report talks about promoting a greater understanding of the interconnectedness between humans and nature. We need to move beyond seeing nature as something separate from ourselves, something we can just exploit without consequence.
So it's not just about changing policies and economic systems.
Sure.
It's about changing mindsets.
Exactly.
That sounds like a tall order. How do we even begin to shift these deeply ingrained values and beliefs?
Well, it starts with education, of course.
Right.
Integrating environmental studies into school curricula, raising awareness about the importance of biodiversity,
Yeah.
highlighting the link between a healthy environment and human well-being.
Right. It's about getting people to experience nature firsthand,
Yeah.
to reconnect with the natural world. Think about national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, even urban green spaces. These places can play a huge role in fostering a sense of wonder and appreciation for nature.
Absolutely. And it's also about incorporating diverse knowledge systems into our decision-making processes.
Yeah.
Indigenous communities, for example, often hold a wealth of knowledge about local ecosystems and sustainable practices that have been passed down for generations.
Right.
We need to value and integrate these perspectives.
This makes me think about India's long tradition of respecting and living in harmony with nature. Ideas like ahimsa, nonviolence, it extends beyond just human interactions.
Right.
There's a deep respect for all forms of life.
Precisely. Tapping into those cultural values and traditional knowledge systems could be a powerful driver of transformative change in India. It's about bridging the gap between ancient wisdom and modern solutions.
So where does India stand in terms of implementing these 5 strategies? We've touched on some examples, but is India on the right track toward this transformative change?
India is definitely making strides. Several national initiatives align with the report's recommendations.
Okay.
Take the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, for instance.
Yeah.
It's not just about cleanliness, it's about recognizing the link between a clean environment and a healthy society.
Right. And the National Action Plan on Climate Change addresses the interconnectedness of environmental issues. Plus, there's the FAME scheme promoting electric vehicles.
Yeah.
That's all about shifting towards sustainable transportation systems.
Exactly. And don't forget about initiatives like the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, which aims to provide clean cooking fuel. That reduces deforestation and improves air quality, which benefits both human health and biodiversity.
It sounds like these initiatives touch upon many of the 5 strategies we've discussed.
They do.
It's encouraging to see those connections. What about India's commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals,
Yes.
or SDGs? How does that play into this?
Yeah, the SDGs provide a global framework for sustainable development.
Okay.
That encompasses economic, social, and environmental dimensions. India has been actively contributing towards achieving these goals.
And many of those goals align directly with the transformative change the IPBES report is calling for.
Absolutely. India is making progress in areas like clean energy, clean water, responsible consumption, and protecting life on land and below water. These are all crucial components of a sustainable future.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. It's clear that the biodiversity crisis is a complex issue with far-reaching implications. But it's also clear that solutions exist, and transformative change is possible.
Exactly. And for our listeners preparing for the UPSC exams, this report is a goldmine.
Yes.
Understanding these 5 strategies for transformative change, being able to connect them to real-world examples,
Right.
and knowing how India is contributing to global sustainability efforts, this is all essential knowledge.
If you're tackling the environmental section of the UPSC exam, think of these strategies as potential essay topics or a framework for analyzing case studies.
Right.
And remember the connections between environmental issues, economic systems, and social values. Those are key.
Yeah, the IPBES report provides a really comprehensive understanding of these complex interrelationships,
Right.
which is exactly what the UPSC examiners are looking for. It's not just about memorizing facts, it's about demonstrating a deep understanding of the challenges and potential solutions to the biodiversity crisis.
Well said. This deep dive could be a game changer for your UPSC prep. So hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives on crucial topics. We'll help you navigate the complexities of current affairs and equip you with the knowledge you need to ace those exams.
Until next time. Keep diving deep and stay curious.